What could be more French than this? The Eiffel Tower, a beret, an accordion, and the croissant. We're used to seeing it as the ultimate symbol of Paris. We pay triple for a genuine French breakfast. But what if I told you that the French basically stole it? And that behind this delicate pastry lies blood, gunpowder, secret nighttime tunnels, and a massive war between the Christian world and the mighty Ottoman Empire? The French didn't invent the croissant. They didn't even call it that for the first few hundred years. In fact, if it weren't for one chance encounter in Vienna in 1683, you would never have seen that iconic crescent shape. Today, we're going to find out, how did a pastry become a political manifesto? Why was the croissant something people could be killed over? And how did an Austrian princess, hated and executed by the French, manage to change their menu forever? When we say croissant, we really mean viennoiserie. Remember that word. In French, it literally means things from Vienna. Even the French, in their own professional terminology, admit this came from Vienna. But why is the whole world convinced it's Parisian? Marketing? Maybe. But the history goes much deeper. Imagine 17th century Europe, a time of great empires. Louis XIV, the Sun King, dictates fashion from France. But on the other side of Europe, a drama is unfolding that will decide the fate of Western civilization. And it was there, amidst explosions and screams, that our hero was born. The year is 1683. A massive Ottoman army led by Grand Vizier Kara Mustafa lays siege to Vienna. There are over 150,000 Turks. Vienna's defenders, barely 15,000. The city is doomed. The Turks knew Vienna's walls were too strong, so they turned to cunning. They began digging tunnels under the city to plant gunpowder and blow the walls apart from the inside. They worked at night, in total silence. But there was one group of people who also didn't sleep at night: the bakers. They worked in basement bakeries, preparing morning bread for the exhausted citizens. Legend has it that a baker named Peter Wendler was working in his shop when he heard a strange sound, a rhythmic tapping, from below. The ground beneath his feet seemed to vibrate. He realized the Turks were right under them. Wendler raised the alarm. Austrian soldiers managed to find the tunnel and neutralize the mines. A few days later, reinforcements arrived. The Polish cavalry, led by King Jan III Sobieski, crushed the Turkish camp. Vienna was saved. Europe was saved. Emperor Leopold thus asked Wendler, "How can I reward you?" The baker asked for only one thing: the exclusive right to bake a bun in the shape of a crescent, the symbol found on the flags of the defeated Turks. Why? It was an act of triumph. The Viennese wanted to literally eat their enemy for breakfast. Thus was born the Kipferl, the ancestor of the croissant. So, the Kipferl lived in Vienna for nearly 100 years. It was dense, sweet, and not flaky at all. How did it end up at Versailles? Enter one of history's most controversial figures, Marie Antoinette, an Austrian archduchess who, at age 14, married the future King of France, Louis XVI. Imagine a young girl torn from her home, brought to a foreign country where she is hated and where everything feels artificial. She suffered from homesickness. So what did she do? She asked her royal bakers to make her that specific bun from Vienna. French nobles, who always mimicked the queen, began ordering Austrian pastry. But they couldn't pronounce Kipferl. They started calling it a croissant, from the French word for crescent moon. Irony of fate. The people of France were starving while the queen ate her exquisite croissants. When the revolution began, she was famously attributed with the phrase, "If they have no bread, let them eat cake." She never actually said it, but the legend of the arrogant Austrian with her buns cost her her head at the guillotine. But hold on to your seats. Marie Antoinette brought the shape, but she didn't bring the crunch. The real croissant boom in Paris didn't happen because of a queen, but because of an artillery officer named Auguste Zang. In 1838, this Austrian opened a shop in Paris on Rue de Richelieu called Boulangerie Viennoise, Viennese bakery. Zang was a marketing genius. He was the first to use glass display cases and flashy newspaper ads. His kipferls conquered Paris. They became so popular that hundreds of French bakers began to copy them, but they were still made from ordinary yeast dough. It wasn't until the early 20th century, around 1910-1920, that an unknown French genius, yes, we have to give them credit here, decided to change the recipe. He took the croissant shape and merged it with the technique of pâte feuilletée, puff pastry layered with butter and folded multiple times. That is when the modern croissant was born. What we eat today is a hybrid, an Austrian legend, French technique, and ingredients made accessible by industrialization. Have you noticed that in Paris, croissants come in two shapes, straight and curved like a crescent? This is no accident. It's the result of a great butter war. The straight croissant, croissant au beurre, must be made exclusively with butter. This is the elite version. The curved croissant, croissant ordinaire, often made with margarine or mixed fats. By law, a baker is required to curve the ends so the customer can see from a distance. This is the cheap version. Today, France protects the croissant as if it were a nuclear asset. There is a special certification for bakeries that make croissants by hand, fait maison. Why? Because 80% of croissants sold in France today are actually frozen, mass-produced products from factories. So, what is the truth? Whose croissant is it? If we talk about the shape, it's Vienna. If we talk about the name, it's France. If we talk about the symbol, it's a victory over the Ottomans. But there is one more secret. For a long time, parts of the Islamic world viewed the croissant as an insult. In 2013, in the Syrian city of Aleppo, Islamist rebels officially banned croissants. Why? Because they viewed them as a symbol of Muslim defeat and a celebration of colonialism. Imagine, a simple butter bun still carries such political weight that it can be banned by law. We're used to thinking of food as just fuel or pleasure, but every layer of that dough represents years of siege. It's Marie Antoinette's longing for home. It's the ingenuity of a defector officer who decided to bake bread instead of firing cannons. The French didn't invent the croissant, but they gave it something the kipferl didn't have. They gave it romance. They made it part of the art de vivre, the art of living. Without Paris, the croissant would have remained a heavy bun in Austrian coffee houses. But without Vienna, Paris would have no soul. So, here is the summary of our detective story. The croissant was born in Vienna as the kipferl to celebrate the victory over the Turkish siege of 1683. Its shape is an ironic mockery of the Islamic crescent. Marie Antoinette made it fashionable, and Auguste Zang made it accessible to Parisians. It only became truly French when butter triumphed over dough and the bun became flaky. Next time you have a croissant for breakfast, remember, you are participating in an ancient celebration of victory. Savor every layer of history. And now, for the most important part. We've settled the score on BBQ and croissants, but there's one more thing. French fries. The whole world calls them that. But if you say that to a Belgian, they might take serious offense. Belgium and France have been fighting a legal war for decades over the right to be called the birthplace of this dish. And you know what? Belgium's arguments are much more convincing. They even wanted to register fries as a UNESCO World Heritage Treasure. Want to know how tiny little fish helped invent French fries and why Americans mistakenly labeled them French? Subscribe and hit the bell. It's going to be a gastronomic battle of the titans, Belgium versus France. And in the comments, let me know, what goes better with a croissant? Chocolate or just a lot of butter? What could be more French than this? The Eiffel Tower, a beret, an accordion, and the croissant. We're used to seeing it as the ultimate symbol of Paris. We pay triple for a genuine French breakfast.